Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today it's my pleasure to be speaking with Kate Hoffman, CEO and co-founder of Growup Urban Farms. Growup Urban Farms produce sustainable salads and herbs by growing them in a controlled environment indoors in vertically stacked layers. So that means they can harvest year-round, grow products close to where their retail customers are, and reduce the carbon footprint and wastage along the way. It's a business driven by values, doing good whilst also making money. Now, Kate started her career as a management consultant at IBM, but when she took a sabbatical to do an MSc in environmental technology and business, Kate discovered vertical farming and really fell in love with the idea of building a scalable business that could grow food more sustainably. So in 2013, Kate started Growup. After building the UK's first commercial aquaponic urban farm in 2015, she's now leading the company through their scale-up phase, and she does all of this whilst also running around after her dog and 22-month-old toddler. Kate has raised an impressive total of £1.9 million over 3 funding rounds. And so I'm really excited to find out all about how Kate achieved this and her experience of raising that money, the highs, the lows, the challenges, and her top tips for success. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you.
We're so excited to hear all about Growup and your journey, raising all that amazing amount of investment that you've achieved. I'd love to hear, first of all, kind of how did you come up with the idea for the business? I know you were studying at the time, but I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, yeah, so I had taken a sabbatical from my job. I used to work at IBM, and I'd always been really passionate about sustainability and very interested in food, but I didn't come from a science background. And so I was doing this master's in environmental technology and business, I guess because I thought I would go into environmental or sustainability consulting afterwards. And whilst I was on that program, on that master's program, I was also part of a community called Climate Kick, which is a public-private partnership across Europe for climate innovation. And as part of that, I came across the idea of urban farming and aquaponics and hydroponics and vertical farming. And I think it was a real sort of light bulb moment for me that the entire food system that we have that is very global and very industrialized is broken in so many ways. And there's all this exciting technology and process innovation that's happening. But in a lot of areas, because the scale at which that innovation needs to happen in order to compete with what's there traditionally, because that scale is really big, people are still trying to work out what the business models look like. So this was in 2011 when I came across the whole concept, and nobody had really cracked it yet. I thought it was a really interesting business challenge that could have a really incredible impact in terms of creating a more sustainable food system.
So, I mean, it's a huge challenge to take on.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I don't think that we are going to single-handedly fix the food system.
But play your part nonetheless.
Sure, yeah.
For those of us who don't understand, I'm going to put myself into that category. Can you just tell us what aquaponics and hydroponics actually means?
Sure. So aquaponics is a combination of 2 really well-established farming practices: aquaculture, farming fish, and hydroponics, which is a combination of, which is a process where you grow plants in a nutrient solution instead of soil. And the way that aquaponics works is you just take the wastewater from the fish farm and you use that as a nutrient base for your plants. And with hydroponics, your nutrient solution might come from an aquaculture system, or it might come from synthetic or organic fertilizers. And it's just really, I mean, loads of our food is grown hydroponically already. It's not a new technology. It's in itself growing without soil it's not new. What's innovative is the controlled environment part. So taking all of that production and doing it completely indoors. And that means, so that's when people talk about vertical farming. Generally, that's what they mean. They mean when you have your plants stacked vertically like that. Mm-hmm. And for each layer of plants, you'll have LED lighting, special lighting designed to help the plants grow. And you'll have an irrigation system, and you'll control the environment in terms of temperature and humidity and airflow. And that means that you can grow all year round, which we can't do for most crops in the UK. And it means that your quality and your quantity that you produce is very consistent, and that you're not affected by external climate and weather patterns, which is a really big problem already for farmers all over the world. And it's increasingly really starting to affect our food chain in the UK.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like an expensive business to get off the ground, something that's quite capital intensive. Is that right?
It's capital intensive. And the reason why it's capital intensive is because there's a direct correlation between the amount of money that you spend on your technology and the quality of produce that you can grow. So you can spend less money, but the farm that you build will be of worse quality, and the produce will be of worse quality, and that's not what customers and consumers want. So yes, it's capital intensive, which is terribly unfashionable these days. You know, most businesses most businesses are digital or software businesses, and even the ones that are hardware based tend to be much less capital intensive, because the cost of production for a lot of hardware has gone down. But I describe it to people as saying that we're currently like the Tesla of food production. So, you know, in the future, I guess that Elon Musk and a lot of other people hope that everyone will be able to afford an electric car, and that will be part of the mobility of the future. But for now, the entry into that market is an expensive product.
It is. I mean, you're right. It's challenging. If it's a capital intensive business, there are a lot of investors that are going to shy away from that, because, as you say, people are generally more interested in companies that have very little capital at the start, can scale quickly.
Yeah.
So using that analogy is clever, because, of course, everybody has seen how successful Tesla has been. So I think that's something that people can take away. But I want to know then how you attacked this whole fundraising piece. So you've got this idea for a business, you know it's capital intensive, first time entrepreneur, that's tricky. So how did you think about how you would fund your investment journey?
Well, the Climate Kick program that I mentioned to you before, that was an accelerator. And so we had support, you know, from early on in thinking about the business model, the financial model, and being really clear on that, which I think in itself is fundamental to going out and asking someone else to give you money for your business. Because if you don't have those things clear in your head, you know, that's not investable. So starting from, for me, you know, we really started this business not because we'd invented a technology that we then had to find a market for and sell, but because we identified a problem that needed fixing, and we then needed a business model that allowed us to fix that problem. So I think that's probably the case for a lot of impact businesses. You know, they will start with, this is the problem that I want to solve, or this is the area that I'm passionate about and I want to make a difference in.
Yeah, brilliant. And so problem first, and I think that's very important. You know, I do see some entrepreneurs, as you say, kind of inventing products without having properly thought about the problem they're solving, and it's very difficult to then take that forward.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I'm sort of fairly on my better days critical, on my worst days scathing of businesses that aren't solving a problem and that are more likely to just be contributing to creating an economy and society that doesn't really work for everyone. And the reason I mention that is because I think it's intrinsically linked to investment rating, to like the broader investment rating ecosystem. Because unfortunately, the more of those businesses that exist, the harder it is for businesses that are solving a real social or environmental problem, but have a potentially longer investment horizon to get investment because they're competing with short-term, the lure of a short-term return.
That's an interesting point. Although, don't you think that investors will see through that, and actually, because the problem you're solving is so big and fundamental, that ultimately is something that is very scalable and therefore very investable?
So certainly the right investors will. My experience over the last 6 months is that raising investment, you've got to kiss a lot of frogs, and lots of I'm just now, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking also, like, this is such an interesting podcast. I'd love to share this with our stakeholders, and then obviously we're going to now think I just called them frogs. So
they're not really frogs, but I know what you mean. I mean, you're right. You often do have to kiss a lot of frogs. I mean, I suppose the trick is to try and not kiss too many frogs.
Yeah, we could go with that analogy for quite a long time. I think you're right that you've got to find the right investors, but I think the problem is that the way that the investment world works is it often follows itself. So if the general trend is towards investing in software businesses that are going to offer a 3-year return, it's much harder to get people to get their head around investing in a business that has a longer term sustainability aspect to it. And actually, when I believe those businesses like ours are longer term more sustainable from a financial perspective, not apart from anything else. So, what I'm really interested in is creating a business that as an asset has really long-term value. And that means long-term value for my shareholders as well. And that is just not the same as creating a business designed to look profitable after 3 years.
Yes, you're right. And it is about finding the right investors, the ones that see past the buzzwords of things like blockchain and AI.
Although I must say, like Tom, my business partner who does all of the technical stuff, like he's the first one to start getting excited about the potential for blockchain and AI in our industry. So I don't want to knock it, but you're right. There's definitely buzzwords.
No, I'm not knocking it, but yeah. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So when you kick things off, so you put some money of your own in, did you?
Yeah, we put some money of our own in. We've also, as co-founders, accrued a lot of unpaid salary over the last 5.5 years.
Yeah, we all.
Exactly. I mean, that's entirely normal and to be expected. And then the accelerator program that we were part of with Climate Kit gave us some seed funding, which really sort of allowed us to, I guess, spend the first year, really getting that business model right, building our small prototype and doing other early stage activities.
So once you'd had that bit of funding, you had an Innovate UK grant, is that right?
So we were awarded some Innovate UK funding, which we used to basically raise match funding from private investment to build our commercial prototype, which was it was called Unit 84. It was the UK's first commercial aquaponic urban farm. And the matching investment for that grant, because basically Innovate UK funding is paid quarterly in arrears. So as a small business, you have to already have the cash flow in place to pay for the work before the grant will come back and you'll get the benefit from it. So you essentially have to have the funding in place to cover it already. And we got a convertible loan from Ignite Social Enterprise. So again, what was interesting was the loan, because it was a convertible loan and not equity, we didn't have to define a valuation for the business then either, because the terms of the loan basically were that it would convert at a future valuation, not at a current one.
Yeah, another great route early doors when it is difficult to come up with a valuation, isn't it, at that stage?
I mean, and there's methods for doing it, but ultimately what you're doing is making a guess. And I think people aren't open and honest enough about that, about the challenges of valuing a business that doesn't have any cash flow.
Yeah, actually, in the early days, I think people can get too hung up on valuation.
Yes.
As long as it's within the right kind of ballpark, it honestly doesn't really matter, because it's the long-term value that you're building, and who knows where it's going to go from here. So interesting. But I think for businesses like yours, I mean, I know you said it can be challenging when you're a kind of social impact enterprise. You don't tick the boxes of the things that investors are finding in fashion, so to speak. But on the other hand, you can find it more easier to get those kind of innovation grants for a business like yours.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, I think that, so the more I speak to people in other countries starting up their own businesses, both in impact and just in more general businesses, the more I realise that the innovation funding we have in this country is actually amazing, and the system is really incredible. And for all the challenges that you might have as a small business engaging with a large funding body, actually the support I think that's available is excellent. It's just there's no such thing as free money, so you can't expect an innovation grant to be free. But certainly, I think what's really good is that bodies like Innovate UK, that their strategy now is, businesses really do have to incorporate sustainability into what they're doing. So there's good opportunities there for funding.
Yeah, it's a great thing, and I think. I know the paperwork involved in getting those grants isn't straightforward, but also I know that people who have been successful with Innovate UK grants often go on to be more successful than in raising equity finance, because of that kind of badge of honour of having gone through Innovate UK. So,
and it's been, I would say the other thing about the Innovate UK funding, which is quite different from private investment, is that it's funding for collaborative projects. So you can't just get the funding for yourself on your own. It's all about funding collaboration, which is we found that to be a great way of engaging customers, so retailers and people in the food industry who maybe before that, wouldn't consider us a sort of valuable partner, but because we can put these projects together to work on, it's a great way of building relationships and shared value as well.
Okay. Brilliant. So post that kind of grant, have you then gone out and raised kind of more traditional equity finance?
We did an equity finance round, which we closed just at the end of 2016, and we raised around 280,000, I think, in that. And that was from a combination of angels and sort of small funds.
And how did you find those people?
So it was a real combination of meeting individuals through sort of pitching and networking events, and meeting funds through, I would say, also through our network. So perhaps we approached an angel syndicate in one case, and they said, look, this isn't quite right for us, but we think you should speak to this fund. And we did, and we were a good fit for them. And with the other fund, they had actually approached us. They'd been to visit the farm because they were interested conceptually in what we were doing, and said, come back and talk to us if you're ever raising investment. This is something we might be interested in. And so we did. And I think that network that you need to build is really important when it comes to raising investment, because ultimately, and especially at earlier stages, people are investing in people. So the more people that you know, the more people who know you, the more likely you are going to be able to find the right investors, I think.
And let me just check in on that. It's not just about building relationships with investors, is it? It's about building a wide network within your industry with influencers, so that you can reach the investors when you need to.
Yeah, and I think so for me, and I suspect this might be something that other women feel as well. I feel quite uncomfortable with the idea of networking as like an activity in itself. And in fact, I don't think networking as an activity in itself is the way that you build your network. It's through actually just having conversations with people you meet in the course of business and forming, like you said, forming those relationships, that is going to be the way to ultimately give you access to people who might be interested in investing.
Yes, I agree. I think there's that perception that networking means that you have to go to these hideous events, where you don't know anybody, and you've got to somehow kind of strike up a conversation with them and start business. I mean, that's not really what networking is about.
It's not. That's not how you. I suppose that might be networking, but that's not how you build a good network.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think also, I don't know whether you would agree with this, Kate, but I feel that a lot of these sort of networking events are set up in the evening around drinks. And I think when you're a parent, especially of small children, that's challenging.
Yeah, that is really challenging. And, I do find it's a constant juggling act to make sure that you're choosing, because then if your time is limited and, if you have childcare responsibilities, you have to pick and choose which events you attend, and your time becomes that much more precious that you can't kind of frivolously think, oh, I'll just go along to this because it might be interesting. You have to really start targeting, is there going to be the right audience there? Are there specific individuals going that I want to meet and to arrange a meeting with? You have to become a bit more strategic, I think, about how you choose to spend your time, basically.
Yes, avoid the scattergun approach of just doing anything and everything.
Yeah, and encourage people who are organising events or networks or things like that to not always host them at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. when you need to be doing nursery pickup or bedtime.
I think so. I mean, I personally think that those kind of events is part of your job. It's part of work. Why not make it during the working day? Why does it have to encroach into your family and social time? It's one of my bugbears.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah. So, let's just talk a little bit more about sort of being a female entrepreneur, raising finance. And I'm just interested to know, did you face any challenges or not?
It's always difficult for me to answer that question in the sense that I have no point of comparison. I've never been a male entrepreneur, so I can't tell you what it's like to do this process as a man. What I'm conscious of is how often I am the only woman in a room. And I mean that it's often the case that I'm the only woman pitching, and all the investors are men, white, middle-aged men. White, middle-aged, middle-class men. I mean, it's, it's a very narrow demographic. And I suppose one of the things that doesn't cause a barrier for me is the fact that, because our business is in food, everyone can relate to that. So I can imagine that if you're a woman raising money for a business that is solving a problem for women, or actually for any demographic that is not white, middle class, middle-aged men, then that's really challenging because, as I said before, people invest in people and they invest in businesses that they understand and that they can relate to. So, that I think could be problematic. And I don't think I feel that so much because of what we're doing. Somebody did say to me recently, and I would agree with it, that if you're a white middle class woman, you're not breaking any demographic or any diversity barriers by being in the room. And I think that's
yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. That really is an interesting point, because they can still relate to you in many, many ways. Even though you have a different gender, you come from the same kind of world that they do.
I think so. And so I think that it's really worth being, for me, it's really worth being mindful of that yes, I might find it a bit disconcerting that there aren't more women in the space, but it's not been a barrier for me.
It doesn't intimidate you or anything like that.
No. And I don't think I could. I don't think I've got the time to spare to be worried about it.
Good for you. I mean, did you ever get any questions from investors around things like how you would manage the business around a family? Because I know a lot of women do get those questions. I wondered if you did too.
I did get asked that so the other thing is when we were pitching for that round that we closed in 2016, I was 7 or 8 months pregnant. So I was pitching, and I got to do this great line in my presentation where I would say, we're not just growing food, we're also growing people. And then I'd have this big bump in front of me as well. So that was really,
that's clever though, because you actually, you didn't hide from it. Obviously you couldn't hide from it at that point, but also you kind of made light of it. And actually that's quite interesting, rather than ever sort of feeling that you had to hide it or be defensive. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I didn't really have a choice at that point. I've gone for some really big smocks, I suppose. But yeah, so when we were doing that round, I had one investor ask me, and not in a aggressive way at all, but this is an angel who has small kids of his own, you know, sort of knows what and runs his own business, so knows what some of what that's like. And he just said, what are you planning on doing when you have the baby, in terms of, you know, how you're going to manage things? And I said, well, you know, here's sort of on paper, here's the plan, and I'm going to take 3 months off, and my administrative duties are going to be shared between our financial controller and CTO, and then I'm going to come back after 3 months. I mean, you know, that's what I'm going to do. And on paper, that sort of is what I did, but it was incredibly difficult, and I felt I had a bunch of post-pregnancy physical problems. I think, like every woman, I probably had some postnatal depression as well, just from having hormones all over the place. And it was incredibly difficult for sort of the first 7 months. And I really felt like I didn't have anybody I knew who'd been through the same situation as me. So who had a startup at the earlier stage that we were at, and had a small baby. So it wasn't so much that I had pressure on me externally from investors, but more just for myself. I didn't feel like I had anybody who I could relate to, or who could relate to what I was going through, and that was really difficult. So I would almost myself look to ask investors or funders to try and understand what their personal experience has been a bit more, because I think it has such a big impact on how you are professionally.
I mean, you'd be surprised, actually. I mean, I come across many female entrepreneurs who have raised money whilst they were pregnant, with small children. I mean, with my last business, my sister had all 3 of her children in the very early days of our business. My sister was my co-founder, but I don't think we hear enough about it. So part of my ambition with this interview series actually is to highlight those things and make other women realize that it's totally possible.
Yeah, it is totally possible. And I just think that I didn't know what to expect, as in I thought it was going to be hard, but it was kind of 10 times harder than I was actually expecting. And I think I didn't have enough sort of tips at the beginning, or things that anyone had said to me, you know, the earlier on you make this decision, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, you know, the earlier on you make decision A, the easier it's going to be, or the more bandwidth you'll give yourself, that kind of thing. So there were, I don't by any means think I was the only person who's been through this experience. I just think you're right. We don't hear people's stories, and there's not a good support network for working entrepreneur mums. You know, like I didn't want to join an NCT group because I was going back to work after 3 months. Like those families were not going to have the same experience that I was going to have with my first year after having a baby. Yeah. And it's really hard, and you can do it, but it's really hard, and lots of it is not that fun, and you'll end up feeling bad about yourself for not feeling like you're doing something right for your business or for your baby at some point or another.
Yeah, I mean, I think us women are terrible at carrying this big cloud of guilt around with us, whatever we do, and it's actually not very helpful. But you're right, it is really hard. I mean, even though I say it is possible, I totally agree with you, it is hard, and we do need to support each other through it and find investors that are sympathetic to that. What would be the top advice then that you would give to other women who are going through this journey of raising finance?
So I think my first tip is to make sure that you have your investment story and documents, absolutely top quality. So you're going to need a business plan or an investor memorandum. You're going to need an executive summary. Everyone's going to ask you for a slightly different version of that. So you might as well have one that's 2 pages and one that's 1 page. Like just, everyone's going to want something different. You need a slide deck. And you're going to need 2 slide decks because you're going to need the deck that you pitch to, and you're going to need a deck that you can just send to people, and you're going to need your financial models. And you have to have all of that documentation. And it sounds really boring, but the process of putting that all together will make you so much more confident and comfortable with your business and your numbers. That doing that's really important. And I think getting some external or a third party to look over it for you is really important. Getting feedback on it, and that for us has definitely helped us have the right level of conversations with investors, because they see your documentation and they see that you're serious and that you've really worked hard on it.
Yeah, I mean, my view is you cannot even contemplate going out for investment unless you've done that, because it's all about being totally clear about your business, your strategy, how it's all packaged up, but also, as you say, it's the numbers, and the numbers tell your story in a way that investors can see how they're going to make a return on their investment.
Exactly. And so I think that the other thing then that's really crucial is if you are not a numbers person, if you're not an accountant or a finance person, get someone else in to work with you. Because when we did that, we did that, and it kind of completely transformed my ability to talk about the numbers, because I didn't have to create the model, but I knew all of the numbers that were in there, and I could speak about them and explain how things were connected. And I think that is the biggest kind of risk that things will go wrong in a presentation or a pitch or a conversation with investors, is that you get to a point where in the conversation where they ask you a question and you can't answer it. And this is your baby, it's your business, you know it inside out, you should be able to answer everything. Like, people get a bit of a hiccup about finance because they think, I'm not a finance person, but you can get yourself comfortable, learn, read read Accounting for Dummies or whatever it is, do your own bookkeeping for a couple of years so that you know what your cost of sales are, because you are paying for all those invoices. So you really damn know the cost of everything, and you know how frequently your customers pay you, and what your creditor and debtor days are. Doing that all yourself for your business.
I totally agree. I have to say, I think it's dangerous to outsource that stuff unless you understand it. You have to understand it first.
Yeah.
You have to own your financials. I mean, your business is all about the key performance indicators and the financials. At the end of the day, that's what your business is run on, right?
Exactly. So don't be afraid of it, but also don't worry. But the other thing I've learned is that so few people really do understand finance, and so you're putting yourself at a massive advantage if you can upskill and educate yourself. My favorite sort of example of that is when people, not just investors, but like anybody, I suppose, if you're talking to about your business, when people say to me like, oh, well, what's your gross profit? I'm like, well, the fact that you're asking me that question like that just tells me immediately that you don't really understand how the finances of a business work. Because do you want to know what my gross profit is going to be next year in May? Or do you want to know what it's going to be after we take on a really big strategic customer 6 months down the line? Like the idea that businesses just is one, your finance is one static number, and then that's it, and that's how it looks forever, is only the sort of question that people would ask if they think, oh, everyone needs to know what gross profit is, so I should definitely ask that question. But there's no meaning behind that question on its own. And I can only, I wouldn't sit there in an investor meeting and say like, oh, well, you obviously don't know anything about investment because you're asking me what my gross profit is. I can now say, well, over the course of the first 12 months, it's anywhere between 62 and 67%. But the really interesting thing is, it starts to get higher than that once we can do X, Y, and Z. And you should be able to use your finances to tell a better story.
Yeah, I mean, the way you answered that is brilliant, because it shows that it shows that you're clever. It shows that you've done the work around the assumptions. And it also shows that you really, really know your business inside out. So just from a single answer. So you're right, it's incredibly powerful to be absolutely on top of your numbers.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. But I think equally, some people are numbers people and are comfortable with that. But the other side of it is the communications piece. And not every there are a lot of entrepreneurs who have great businesses, but perhaps aren't particularly strong at the communications piece around how to really explain this business simply to investors and how to position it in the right way. So that can also be another area where it's worth making sure you get the right training and advice and support. And so what is next for you then, Kate? I mean, you're in the middle of another funding round, is that right?
Yeah, we are. And I know when we first spoke, I was hoping that by delaying the interview a bit, we might have closed the round. Still hoping. I mean, we still will close the round. We're not quite there yet. So yeah, we're raising some investment at the moment that's to come into the company as working capital to allow us to then raise some really big money to build the first farm. So, I mean, in that sense, we're raising $750,000 now, and then we're going to go out and raise 13 to 15 million to build a farm. So, those are both of those are big numbers, but that's how much money we need and how much money we need to do it well. And this round is going well. We've got over half committed, and I'm confident we'll get the rest of it done by the end of the year. It's been fascinating. So the interesting thing this time round when I've been raising money versus previous times is we actually have, from other projects, we have cash flow in the business now. So I don't need the money tomorrow. I don't need the money until January, February, which means that the conversations you can have with investors take on a totally different feel, because you're not like, okay, how quickly can we do this deal? Because I really need to be able to pay my staff. So that, I suppose that would be my other tip when you asked before is don't raise, everyone says this, but don't raise money when you need money.
Well, you do need it, but it's about giving yourself enough runway so that you're not doing it at the point where you have no money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's been great from our point of view, it's meant that we can really pick and choose who we talk to, which means I think we're much more likely to find the right investors who are going to invest on the right terms and for the right reasons. And then once we've got that money, we are building a small sort of testing lab to work with customers on our product, on our salad product. And then we're going to build a really big farm and grow the best salad that's available in the UK. And then we're going to build loads more of them.
How exciting. I'm so excited for you. I really am. I feel like I need to go and make myself a really nice herby salad for my lunch.
And check where your salad has come from, because I bet it's not been grown in the UK.
Probably not. I will go and check the label. Thank you. Well, I honestly wish you all the very best in your next phase of growth, Kate, and with this funding round, of course. And we're going to follow your progress with great interest. It's wonderful to see you as such an inspiring female founder making great strides in this space. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And maybe we can come back and do a postscript or something when we've closed the round, and I can see the kind of last bit of the story.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks, Julia.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.